City staff are proposing making changes to how Toronto's warming centres are activated. Now, the recommendations include opening warming centres when the temperature falls to -5 degrees instead of the current mark, which stands at -15. Now, staff say that the centres could be activated whenever Environment Canada issues a freezing rain, snowfall, or winter storm warning as well. Now, they are also proposing a new operating model that would transition the process from the Medical Officer of Health to one determined by the Shelter Support and Housing Administration. And for more on this story, I'm joined live by Don Valley North Councillor Shelly Carroll, the chair of the Economic and Community Development Committee. Thank you for your time this evening. And so I do want to ask, as I just noted with these proposed recommendations, you are in favor of them. So tell me why.
Well, we're really just making a hard and fast rule about something that has been happening this winter and really in winters past. 15 below is when the Medical Officer of Health used to declare an extreme cold weather alert locally. And that's pretty extreme. And so often shelter staff would say, we got to mobilize. We know we're headed towards 15 below. We're not going to wait to get to that temperature. People could die at much warmer temperatures. And so at 5 below, that's sort of when they were triggering it anyway. And so what we're doing is making that the rule. And so it means that warming centers will be open much more often next year. And of course, the report also recommends that if we can get the funding, the cooperation of the other orders of government, there should be a couple of them that are 24/7 from the start of winter to the middle of April.
Now, do you think that there is a need for having more, when we reach that number, that critical number of -15? You're proposing it to be -5, and there are a number of few 24/7 shelters in the city during the very cold and frigid months in the city. Do you think there should be more of those that are 24/7?
Well, we only had one this winter. We wanted to pilot the concept. There's always been a concern that if warming centers became 24/7, essentially that is a shelter, but they're not really designed to be shelters. We've been putting them in makeshift emergency spaces. So what we're talking about is really making sure we're in the best space possible for them to be 24/7. But we still have to see this as a temporary winter stopgap, because ideally what we want to do is improve our shelter system. We need to build a little more capacity, and the perfect ideal would be to build more of what we call modular supportive housing. Those are buildings that they're prefab, so we can put them together very quickly, but they really give people an independent unit in groups of 60 or so, and the programs to support them so that we take people from being homeless to having a warm roof over their head, and also the supports that help them get back to being able to have their own apartment.
Now, all of that sounds like those are excellent ideas and suggestions, but the funding that comes behind those suggestions, and so the money is set to dry up this year. Does that mean that you would have to reach out for the assistance of, let's say, the provincial or federal government?
100%. The modular housing that we have now, if 4 that are constructed and up and running, 1 more coming, we're part of the Rapid Housing Initiative. Great funds that we got them from the federal government, and that had all that funding always has a beginning, a middle, and an end.
Sure.
But there's still the Canada-Ontario housing benefit. Many people enter the shelter system in Toronto hoping to get their hands on that, because we only have so much rent geared to income housing. But the Canada-Ontario housing benefit, we're asking that 20 million more be made available there, because that way we can add to the rent geared to income. A regular apartment can become that RGI unit using that benefit. And it's attached to the person, not the apartment. So if they have to move, even outside of the city, they could say, I found the ideal apartment and the support system around me in Brampton, and the benefit can go with them. So we need 20 million more for that. And to run those 24/7 warming centers, we really need to run them properly and in the right places. We need $5 million for winter 2024.
And what about collaboration when it comes to community partners and housing advocates?
Well, we have a reference group that we meet with that is very collaborative with Shelter Support and Housing Administration, and really advises them, helps them to understand what the advocates out there in the community really need to do what they do on the ground. And they've really helped us very quickly be able to put together that one pilot and really understand it. The problem is we were running it at Metro Hall. Metro Hall is not a shelter, and it's not a space where we could ideally run the programming. A lot of people that came into the 24/7 center, they would be there for about 10 nights or so, get a lot of support, and be ready to be moved on to either an appropriate shelter space or onto a housing benefit. And we want to be in the ideal location that we can have people come in the winter and count on that. Us helping you to understand what's the best place for you to be for really proper and more permanent forms of shelter.
Sure. Councillor Carroll, I do want to switch gears just a bit and ask you in regards to the multiplex announcement in the city of Toronto and how that could possibly change things as far as looking to the future and the way in which people look at housing in the city. What's your take on that?
Well, housing is a continuum. We just talked about the extreme end, homelessness, but there's a continuum here. There are the idea of rooming houses where you just have a room, or there's the idea of having more living units in neighborhoods. So much of Toronto's geography is just what we call the yellow zone on the zoning map. It's just those places where there are single family dwellings. And the best you can do to really improve number of housing units there right now is a second suite, a basement apartment, if you will. What both the province and the city are saying now is that we need to go a little beyond that. We need to start to open our minds to the idea of the multiplex, 3 units or 4 units. Still has to be in similar scale to what is zoned there now. But if we start to open our minds to those building types, the kind that went into these neighborhoods in the 1900s, and we stopped doing it, we need to get back to them. We need to allow a little what we call gentle density in neighborhoods. So that's, multi-generational families, the in-law suite, I have a disabled child who's an adult now and I'd love to build her a unit. What if in doing that, I also built an income unit? Now I'm really contributing to helping out in the housing shortage. The one thing that concerns the community, when they hear us talking about this, we hear us making that as of right. And as of right's terrifying to people. They say, oh, so they'll just pop up. As of right means you won't have to go through an expensive zoning amendment, but you do still have to walk into the city's planning desk, show your plans, get a building permit. There will be scrutiny of your plans. It won't just be willy-nilly.
Certainly. There's still a process that has to go down, of course.
100%.
Last question, because we do need to wrap, but I do want to get your thoughts, of course, on the big announcement when it comes to the Ontario Science Centre moving to the waterfront and your take on that.
Well, people are responding sort of in real time and kind of knee-jerk. I think there's a huge amount of potential here because we want to keep more nature on the Ontario Place lands than was ever contemplated during the spa proposal being launched. But we also want to see more nature on the current Science Centre site. If we are going to contemplate moving it and having housing there, now there's potential to add school capacity to a neighborhood that has needed it for a very long time. Both Flemington and Thorncliffe Park residents could tell you that. And Parkland. Most of their sports take place in a hydro belt nearby. They don't have the kind of beautifully landscaped sports fields and recreational amenity that they deserve. And so that could be part of this plan in a neighborhood that needs it.
Okay, we'll have to end it there. Councillor Shelly Carroll, thank you for your time tonight. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Kayla.